Welcome everybody. In this video, I'll teach you guys how you can always beat Vladimir in mid lane. Vladimir is one of these champs that's incredibly frustrating to verse because of his high sustain and his ability to escape any gank that he wants with his W. But the truth is that beating Vladimir is actually quite easy if you know what to do. So first and foremost, we're going to need to look at the lane through the lens of Vladimir, okay? Vladimir is a champion that is very one-dimensional. He is a pretty strong trader due to his resource generation, of course, in his Q. He has really good escape from ganks with his W, so he's very safe, but that's about it. Okay, he doesn't really do anything else. He's extremely good at these things, but he doesn't do all that other stuff too well. He has pretty bad wave clear. He's also short range, right? So it's really hard for him to get into distance, to get proper damage off. Spacing him is quite easy. And what we can already see is that by him being such a polarizing champion, if we manage to avoid doing the things where he's good at, and we play into the things that he's bad at, we can start eventually getting control of the lane. So Vladimir, as a champion, just wants to isolate you in the lane, win the war of attrition using his regeneration, then pin you down and basically get a lead onto you through his trading. Now, what we want to do whenever we're playing Vladimir, whatever champion, melee, range, whatever we're playing, we want to make sure that if we take a trade onto Vladimir, we win it so that he doesn't allow himself to regenerate it up. And then we're going to be attacking him through the wave state. So what I'm planning to do here versus Vladimir is I'm not really planning to like heavy trade with him. I'm just trading whenever I get my spells up and I know that I beat him. As you can see, whenever his Q3, his big red bar underneath him is coming up, that's where you just take yourself some distance because you do not win the trades versus him at this point. His healing is increased and he deals, of course, a lot of damage. And I'm just slowly chipping away at his health bar. And in the meantime, I'm pushing him in. So by pushing him in, I'm in a position where I basically force him to respond to the minions. And Vladimir is a stationary champion, okay, guys? So what he needs to do is he needs to either stand still for an out attack or stand still for a Q to CS the minion. And his E costs him HP, so he ideally doesn't want to use the E spell to get access to these last hits. So by pushing him in and these minions dying at the same time, it's pretty hard for him to actually CS all the minions and especially hit you as well. So if you time your trades with last hits versus Vladimir, a big part of your problems versus champion are already going to be solved. Now, what a lot of people struggle with whenever they play versus Vlad is that they run in the early lane. And yeah, that's an absolutely viable problem that you're running into because he is just out-sustaining your mana. You see that I'm trading a little bit more heavy with Vladimir right now because I found a solution to me trading heavily with him. What I can just do is I can just reset before him after pushing him in because Vladimir has no wave control, guys. He has only trade control. So I just trade a little bit heavier with him and I turn this eventually into a push and a crash on wave 5. So we're currently on wave 4 and this is wave 5 coming in right here. So what do? High value E through the minions. And at the end of this wave, I just nicely take myself a reset. Most Vladimirs will actually take themselves a combat summoner because they need Ghost to get in range. Once again, they get no mobility, they're linear. And by resetting before him, he's kind of stuck in lane. And what he also needs to do is match the reset. And because he matches the reset, I get him in a little bit of a reset trap. So I basically deny him a lot of extra minions that I do get, including this cannon minion right here. And that puts him just in a pretty awkward position. So the way that you play into Vladimir is by just fundamentals, actually. You time your trades with last hits, you push him in slowly, so he's forced to respond to the minions, and he cannot really find his own resets. And if you can do that consistently, the early lane, you should get like a small CS advantage, because then Vladimir actually becomes quite linear. Now, if you do not get a CS advantage, and you just make sure that you do not really lose the trades versus him, and you can get your own reset off, you basically attack him through the wave, that's when you're in a good position. Now, post level 6, Vladimir is gonna once again play the game where he's going to look to isolate you in the lane. He's going to win the war of attrition. And the way that we can prevent that is by either, if we get a lot of wave clear, we can just keep attacking through the wave and just avoid him through pushing the wave in. And then we can potentially play on his teammates, right? We don't have to beat Vladimir in the 1v1. And this is the big misconception that a lot of players are actually making, is that they have the idea that they need to beat Vladimir in the 1v1, and that's when they start losing versus him, because it's pretty hard to beat him in a 1v1 due to his W being able to deny so much damage and escape, and due to his resource generation in his Q. So if you do that, that's where you struggle into it. But if you can start playing the map, right? That's when you're in a really good spot. So the moment, in this case, I get my E upgrade as Victor, guess what I'm going to do is I'm going to just push the wave and I'm going to play on the map. Now, there is still ways where you can win the trades versus him if you just play it smart and you just constantly avoid that Q3 underneath of Vladimir. As you can see, I'm very intentional with the times that I trade. If he has his normal Q up, it's okay if you have a lot of damage in your kit. In this case, I'm playing Victor, so I do have a lot of damage. But if you don't have a lot of damage, like for example, you're playing Syndra and he has his Q up, that's where you want to be a little bit careful as well. The only key thing that you got to keep in mind versus Vladimir is that you don't really want to fall behind versus him. Because the moment you fall behind versus him, that's when he's really going to just eat you alive, right? Because he can just brute force trades, walk past the wave, and yeah, just play the war of attrition with you. So what I need you guys to understand, right, is if you struggle versus Vladimir, go back into the review to the moments where you lost the trades and figure out why you lost the trades, what you could have done better against it. Maybe you set up your wave a little bit better. Maybe you walked him at a time where he got his Q3, and then you can reverse engineer those positions and see where you can fix your lane. Now, a final thing to note is in the mid game, Vladimir is one of these champions that is quite good at side laning. So there's going to be a time where you might lose prio on the side versus him. That's okay. In that case, right, just play your own game towards what your champion identity is, whatever champion that you're playing, and you're going to be successful. And so as a final thing to note, guys, Vladimir is actually a pretty weak skirmisher in the early game. He has very long cooldowns and they're not that high of DPS. He becomes a really good skirmisher with his ult later down the line. But in the early game, he's just not that good of a skirmisher. So if we want to summarize how to beat Vladimir, right, it's just attack him through the wave and do not play his trading game. And we want to get action going onto the map, kind of just play away from him, use our faster and more control on the wave to impact the map. And you can, of course, win in the trades if you time your trades properly when he doesn't really get the ability to interact back with you, either by timing it with last hits or when he doesn't have his Q up. And it's very visual, it's very linear. That's why Vladimir is just such a hard champion to make work if you play versus good players. Now, if you struggle versus Vladimir, you probably also struggle versus Akshan. So for that video, check out this one right here.